First, thank you everyone for coming. So beautiful weather out there. I came directly from Berlin, so it's shocking warm here. So I'm glad. So in this talk, I would like to share with you some experiences. So it's gonna be made of 3 different chapters, and I will explore the change of roles, expectation in the industry, and share some stories of me trying to coding, and also including some of my friends. Um, so yeah, let's dive into it. So as we all know, this this is like quite familiar to us, I believe. This is like the three amigo kind of situation in most of the companies I see. So you have the design department, you have the development, and you have the business. So this structure, we often see in the cross-functional team in most of the startups. They all play their own roles here. There's a reason why we say like the triangle is the most stable structure, and this structure has been long time believed to be stable in this case. So most of you works in design or tech and understands that among these 3 different departments, there are deliverables and communications. Even though we try to streamline with cross-functional structure, for example, but there still needs to be clear communication boundaries. However, recently we saw some things like, okay, the future product design end-to-end designers. We saw something imposed or in job descriptions. We're looking for founding designers who can take over all the responsibilities, let's say. And also, in some conversations, we often see uh, roles such as, end-to-end designer, founding designer, or maybe design engineer, like new terms keeps popping up. Then let's look at back in the days. What was it before? So in the very, very early days, like I remember when I first started, probably 9 years ago, we have this kind of structures like rules and expectations. We have product managers, we have UX designers, and we have UI designers. You have researcher, and you have, of course, front end engineers, and so on and so on. But then we're saying, okay, why not having one person taking over the responsibility of UX and UI and make the role of UX UI designer? Then we're thinking, oh, actually, research is very interesting and important part of UX UI design. Nothing about UX and UI will exist without user research. So why not combine these as well? And we have product designers who also take some responsibilities of user research. And here comes the interesting part. We're now talking about end-to-end designers who also needs to make up assumptions about business, validates them, and also take some responsibility of the outcomes, which means maybe measuring the result, the percentage, or maybe even have KPIs on ahead, right? Um, and on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, we could say, okay, the term of product engineering is coming up. It's like, I feel like it comes up quite frequently, like in the recent years. Probably some front end engineer who were training as in that discipline now also kind of merge with product design. So product designer, front end engineer. Um, so basically, you have like a very smooth transaction from a design to development. On the other hand, meanwhile, the Silicon Valley or the investors taking a very interesting look because they're now saying they're very interested to invest in this very lean structure. They're saying they want to fund the first 10%, 100 billion company. Um, so the reason why it's interesting to me is because this was not something we would imagine before. We'll say, okay, the startup thing, of course, we still have this kind of triangle structure in there. But oh my God, 10%, and that's like 100 billion company. How's that going to be possible, right? So we look at again the structure, what we talked about before, the three amigo kind of situation. This is quickly changing, and the change is happening right now. we're looking at a new structure that plays 3 different roles. That is product, backend data, and marketing. Um, so in this kind of new structure, what I see is the gaps between the previous one getting closed up and the rules and expectations, or let's say the boundary, starting to becoming narrower and narrower and blurrier, blurrier. Um, so their roles going to be intertwined with each other. Um, maybe in your company previously, you heard about this question: who owns product? Right? We all heard about this question. I heard it a lot personally. So what if design owns products? And what if designers owns product? What if designer not only owns the product but also initiate the product? And what if designers becomes founders or let's say builders, right? Let's look at the product. So this is a personal story. I'm gonna tell you a story about this. Um, Outside of design, as a designer, I am also a street dancer. So maybe someone also in the thing, but as a street dancer, the most annoying part is that you need to find activities. You need to find your people, your community. There are sessions. There are constantly things happening like battles, right? But to find these things, it's really a pain for us. That's why all of the street dancers have groups like this. Maybe in WhatsApp, maybe in Instagram, or maybe throughout the channels, right? So, for example, in this one we have in Berlin, we have more than 1,000 community members inside. On a daily basis, what we do is basically just sharing, okay, today, next week, there is a battle coming, and the category is hip hop, the category is breaking, this, then that. But still, because we have more than 1,000 users or 1,000 members in a group, people are constantly texting, constantly asking, okay, what is happening next week? What is the battle next month? What is the category? Who can participate, right? What's the prize money? So a lot of times we need to kind of know someone in order to know someone, or you have to be embedded in the community to find these kind of informations. Um, so not surprisingly, one solution naturally comes out is keep this flyer. Um, as you can see here, this flyer is literally is the profile image. So in this flyer, we just have this one person manually changing or updating the information. Okay, Monday this is happening. Tuesday this is happening. Everything's manual, and this poor guy just have to do it kind of every week. And even that, still, you will see people asking questions, and the WhatsApp group. I know, pretty sure everyone has that one annoying group, has useful information you want to know, but you have to mute it because everybody be talking at the same time. Um, so I wanted to do something for the community. This is my project that I initiated. So basically, it's a web-based station where all the informations about battles, practice sessions, or other things like workshops or even gigs happening. And so the information's updated, and you can filter that out with different discipline or different style that you're practicing, so that you can filter out what you're looking at by time, categories like that. The goal is basically just to not replace, because I still want to keep this kind of community feeling, but providing a channel where people will be comfortable to look it up and what's happening, so that you never miss another battle of things. What's coming next is that I'm planning to have dance gigs or even events that could be possible in the future being sponsored or something like that. But yeah, not there yet. Here's another example. My dear friend Sam. He developed something quite interesting. So he saw Sam is also very active in the design community in Berlin. He saw the needs of a lot of designers who not from Germany but come from outside. Now they are struggling to learn German. So he developed this app. Basically, it's flashcards and helps people to learn the language. What I like this about it the most, maybe I come to this side. I'm gonna show you a little thing. Is that 1 second? is this functionality that you could just enter a word that you are interested in or saw it somewhere, and the AI can generate basic context or sentences to put this word in there. And now it also belongs to part of your flashcard. So for example, like that, Sam also developed this product completely by himself. So my product is web-based, but Sam's product is like iOS. He did his research and he did even computer analysis and developed this product. And eventually it's already launched in a testing kind of version. And he already has some initial feedbacks from the users. So now I would like to talk about um, why it is possible. What makes all of this kind of initiative or fun projects starting to become reality, right? Um, Vibe coding. Vibe coding starts to become a thing after November 2024. What happens before November 2024, the term vibe coding starts. I was in desperate needs of a website because I want to update my portfolio, but being the cheap person I am, I don't want to pay a third party. I was like, okay, since it has to be a website, let me actually try to learn how to code. So I this is basically an illustration of my work process. What I do is that I learn some basic foundations of JavaScript, HTML, CSS, all that, and then I will use the editor to edit all my code and to learn basic Git to commit, and then I will go to ChatGPT and say, okay, I want to achieve this functionality, or I want to achieve this, but I don't know how. Maybe something is not working. How am I going to change this? So I copy paste my code to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT replies according to what I said. And I just have to trust it and then copy paste back to the editor. And sometimes it's not working, then that's all the fun happens, right? And of course, the online community of Stack Overflow, a lot of devs very helpful in my little journey. As you can see, here's like a lot of back and forth, copy paste, like contents from all over the place. And this is just a snapshot of my project, like very raw snapshot. I still started in Figma because I wanted everything to be kind of systematic and beautiful visuals and stuff like that. Then here comes, after November 2024, here comes the players. So those are the logos I put it there. Um, Can I just ask the audience, how many of you, please raise your hands if you can recognize all of their logos? All of them. Okay, great. I saw some hands. Great, perfect. Um, so these vibe coding tools, basically, it replaces what I was doing before. It wasn't really, I would say, like very step learning curve for me because I feel like I was doing this kind of from before already. So the way I say it, for example, this is the cursor. Um, on that corner, up corner, it is basically an editor where you can edit all your code or do some changes there. And then the bottom, because I'm a person tend to use like uh, not in the native. So yeah, the way I say is also on the right hand side, you have communications. You basically telling ChatGPT, okay, something went wrong. What should I do? Or I want to achieve this little function. What is possible? And also, you can ask a lot of questions there. So for me, it is basically kind of no longer copy paste anymore because now everything's kind of automatically done for you. And however, what I did or what I like to stress is that I still need to be very careful about, for example, what has been executed. That is like, for example, a reply of what cursor said. I'm going to do this, I'm going to execute that. The other thing is that how things were implemented, which is also quite important because at the end of the day, it is coding. At the end of the day, you are building something. You have to be aware what is being edited or what is being implemented, because otherwise, you will be ended up just saying yes to everything that these tools are prompting. And here we enter this famous meme that is the vibe coding monkey. Um, I don't think I need to explain it too much. Maybe a lot of people saw this. You just press yes, 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 the tab key, right? Here I would like to insert another example of my another dear friend, Olu. Um, he's quite amazing because he achieved something that he built a design system in Figma utilizing the new MCP function. And now he's be able to achieve the sync transaction between the Figma components directly to code using the quite amazing new function of Figma MCP. So as we can see here, there is like a one-on-one direct correlationship between the snippet of the design component and the code here. It's not only just the color of the fonts, but also every attribute. However, there was an incident because he just tried to update this one color token in the design system from this primary blue button color to this on the right hand side, the orange-ish color, with this only one attempt to update one color token. Cursor changed everything. Cursor, as you can see, the corner radius, the font, the shadow, everything has been changed. This has been basically the AI hallucination. I believe everyone experienced it. Maybe when you're asking it to fact check something, or maybe you are doing a research and asking it some question, and obviously the answer comes up is not correct. However, in this case, in this kind of situation, the only thing is that the stake is so much higher because the entire design system is broken at this point. And it was only after rounds and rounds and rounds of conversation and complaints or even confrontations, let's say, with the AI, he was keep saying, okay, this is not working. I only ask you to update this one color. What is happening? Then he finally gave up. He was like, this is not happening because the feedback or the reply the cursor keeps saying is like everything's fine. I'm implementing everything you said. This works beautifully, right? He gave up. He was like, okay, the only option for me is just to go back to the roots. Let's look at the code and look at what exactly is written there. And only after that, he's able to achieve this very clear mapping between Figma design system tokens to directly codings through Cursor and MCP, of course. And we are currently still exploring this kind of idea. We would like to call it AI-powered design system solutions. Also, feel free to chat more about this with me if you're interested later. But just for the example, So in conclusion, with this kind of journey back and forth between before November 2024, after with the web coding tools, I feel like there's more control equals more effort. Less control, of course, there's less effort. However, the expense that you have less precision. There's nothing vibe about it. This is like my friend and me in a conversation. We're like, who decided it's called vibe coding? Because there's nothing vibe about it. Everything's like a struggle. It's constant words, constant debugging. Uh, Sometimes we feel like it's maybe even better we just build it ourselves without AI. Which brings up my next question. Always good if the end is good? Here's an example of the recent tea leak incident. I'm pretty sure some of you definitely heard about it. So for those of you who doesn't know about it, it's an app where women can do background checks and experience with men they're dating. That it kind of evolves in more like gossip or like giving red or green flags about the dates. And eventually they have actually around 1 million users. In July, the IDs and selfies and the addresses even of the users were leaked. Those data, turns out, they were never in a secure place because they were uncensored. They were public on the Firebase. So the T app was actually built on vibe coding, the entire whole thing. It's a great prototype that looks right, feels beautifully, and they just launched it, but however, it lacks certain structure or security layer, let's say. The thing is, with vibe coding, a lot of times you're not gonna get the result you wanted. That's the fact. But even in the cases where you actually get the result, exact result that you wanted, you have to be really careful because you don't know how those results were executed or implemented. And that's where the risks lay. This commit is like there needs to be certain weights into this kind of commit into cursor. If you just click yes, 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 run, okay, then you're gonna end up push or commit something that you don't know how is it going to happen or what is going to happen, and eventually even getting the result you want, something's not right. So at the same time, um, I would like to remind ourselves that with vibe coding tools, it's also a beautiful, perfect opportunity to learn. We should keep curious and remember that with ChatGPT is how I kind of learned how to coding at the first beginning. So even within Cursor, this is a snapshot of the uh, right hand side uh, column of Cursor. You can still feel free to ask it questions, right? Like how I was using ChatGPT before. It's like, okay, what's the meaning of this key? What's this key is different from the other kind of key you mentioned? Tell me the answer and I can learn something. Which, in the end, I have a big question for all of us, is that are we currently holding a hammer with the AI and the whole web coding things? Because I'm pretty sure we all also see some cases where I feel like we're just holding the tool of AI, holding the tool of vibe coding, and looking for the nail. Basically, I want to build something with AI. What is that thing? I don't know yet. Let me find that thing. So it's all these kind of experiences, all this kind of journey, my friends, and yeah, personal stuff. This is the question I want ask, kind of open question to all of you and all of the audience. Um, Probably something we could think about. Yeah, thank you.